Gerald Celente, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on, Russell.
As the founder of the Trends Research Institute, Gerald Celente is well respected for his track record of picking business, consumer, political, and economic trends before they show up in the mainstream media. He's appeared on numerous television and radio shows, including CNN, Russia Today, and The Alex Jones Show. If you would like to learn more about Gerald Celente and his work, visit trendsresearch.com. Gerald, in a nutshell, what is the Trends Research Institute?
Well, we've been around since 1980. We have a publication, the Trends Journal. We do trends in the news each weekday night, a broadcast. And we have conferences here over in Colonial Kingston, New York as well, teaching people how to forecast trends. I'm the author of a number of books, Trend Tracking, Trends 2000. And what we do is we look at the current events forming future trends. And we're political atheists. We look at information the way it is, not the way we want it to be. We have no agenda other than finding out the facts and seeking the truth of information. But unlike so many other organizations that take one-dimensional views towards certain issues, for example, economists, they look at the economy inside out, upside down, sideways, and backwards. But how much are they looking at politics? How much they look at social change, environmental change, and on and on and on. So we look at over 300 different trend categories and make connections between them. And as I said, we've been forecasting trends since 1980. Our track record stands on its own. And we also have, the publication, the Trends Journal, which we've been publishing since 1991.
What have you learned in the 35 years since the Trends Institute has been in publication?
That you can never stop learning. And that I look at my forecast and my work in the early years and compare it to now. I mean, there's no comparison. The more you study, the more you learn, the more you see things, the sharper you get at it. It's like any great musician or artist or anybody, writer, and I'm a writer as well. The more you practice at it, the better you get at it. And the things that I've learned is that there are so many wild cards in the deck that nobody can really predict the future. You can see the shape of it, but it's very, very hard to pinpoint when an event's going to happen because of those so many wild cards that are in the deck. And the scheme's undreamed of. For example, who would have ever dreamt that they would come out with a scam called quantitative easing and dump trillions of dollars into a system? This wasn't done before. Who would have ever heard of negative interest rates? Who would have ever heard of negative yields on a bond? So you can never anticipate what can be, considering that there are so many jokers and wild cards in a deck that the best made forecasts can be, they become irrelevant at some point, or the timing is usually. I wouldn't say irrelevant. The timing is the most difficult thing because of actions like that. So, for example, I would have believed that the global economy would have crashed in 2010. I had no idea that they would do quantitative easing or negative interest rates or these kind of things. And as I mentioned, there's never been such a thing as negative bond yields. You buy a bond in Germany or Austria or Sweden or Switzerland or Denmark or Netherlands, and you're going to get back less than you paid for it. You can't make this stuff up. So those are the unpredictables.
And the rules of today aren't necessarily the rules of tomorrow.
No. Again, this isn't, people complain about what's going on, failure of capitalism, when you see the economic problems that are going on. It's not capitalism. It's bankism. In capitalism, there's no such thing as too big to fail. It does not exist. Bailing out the banks, all this quantitative easing by central banks, buying government bonds and mortgage-backed securities, it's not capitalism. So, yeah, it changes. What used to be isn't anymore.
Gerald, there's a saying that once you spot a trend, it's over. how are you able to spot trends accurately, and would you say that you are in fact accurate?
Oh, yeah, well, again, our track record stands by itself. Go to our website, trendsresearch.com. We post them there. We have a magazine. Yeah, you don't get it right all the time. Nobody does. We're human. But as I said, we'll put our track record up against anybody's, and it won't come close. From whether we coined the term clean food back in 1993 when people weren't talking about these things, the growth of bottled water trends back in the early 80s. So they're all there. And again, like bottom of gold at $250 an ounce. And again, you miss some, but we get most of them.
Do you consider other well-known trend models such as the Benner cycle or the Fibonacci sequence?
Not at all.
No?
No. Current events form future trends. We look at as we're speaking now, for example. You go back to our Trends Journal 2009, and we're writing about what's going on between the Houthis of northern Yemen and the Saudis. And we say what problems are going to exist from that, and how the Saudis were defeated when they tried to attack, and what was behind it. And then you look at the current events making future trends right now, and it's in the news. And how is it being sold? It's being sold through propaganda, and that's what the people buy. They buy the soundbite. So they made the story up, Houthis are backed by Iranians, and they overthrew a democratically elected government, and Saudi Arabia is going to restore the legitimate government. This guy who ran, Hadi, had no opponents on the ticket. It wasn't a democratically elected government. The United States and the Saudi allies installed another puppet government after the last puppet government of Salah that was in there since 1990. So people don't know the facts. So then we look at the implications. Okay, this is really big, and it's not making the news, and how it is making the news isn't being reported properly. What's going to happen? As we used to say in the Bronx, payback's a bitch. And now you're already hearing from the Houthis that they are going to launch terror strikes they don't call them terror strikes, they call them martyr strikes within Saudi Arabia against the monarchy and against Saudi oil installations. This is at a time when the global economy is shaky at best. So that's the way we look at the thing, rather than saying, we have to support this one, we have to do that. Stop with this, do whatever you want to do. We just look at the implications.
Weren't the Saudis behind 9/11? Why would the U.S. be doing business with them?
Why did every world leader, from Harper to Cameron, from Obama, and all their secretaries of this and that, go over to Saudi Arabia when the new king took the throne and kissed his ring? If their major export was broccoli, you'd think they'd go over there? It's a disgrace. They talk about ISIS beheading people. They can't come close to the Saudis when it comes to doing a beheading job. I think they're already up to about 36 this year. It was about 87 last year. And I'm tired of hearing these fairy tales, the royal family. This place was carved up after the Ottoman Empire broke up. It's a dictatorship. What, did a princess kiss a frog, and the frog became a prince and then a king? I mean, what am I, 6 years old with this royal crap?
We have an audience member question here. I've been wondering what Celente thinks of our country, mainly present, turning its back on Israel, and also if he sees the caliphate in the Mideast coming together.
Yeah, I don't see it turning the back on Israel at all. To me, Israel is an apartheid state. And I don't want to be called an anti-Semite. I'll talk about any country I want. I'm of Italian descent, and if Mussolini was there, I condemn Mussolini for being a dictator. And as an American, I'm appalled at my money going to Israel, my money going to Egypt, my money going anywhere. And the United States just released $1.3 billion to Egypt, to a country where there was a military coup that's against the laws of the United States. So going back to Israel, you know, they keep stealing land, they keep violating international law and UN resolutions, and they keep getting away with it. They started the war in Gaza, in which they killed over 2,100 people, mostly civilians, because 3 young men were killed in the West Bank, in occupied territory. So why did they bomb Gaza, destroy some 80,000 homes, and kill all these people? So I'm not one of these ones that say, I support Israel forever. I support morality, and I don't care what country wears it and what country doesn't. So again, to me, the other label of anti-Semitism going after people when they discuss this, you know, it's just a cheap shot. Because every one of the Israeli leaders, by the way, beginning with first one, Ben-Gurion, to Golda Meir, all the way through to Netanyahu, they're all Ashkenazi. They're all Khazars. They're not Semites. Semites are Palestinians. And number 2, Israel's a country, it's not a religion. So to me, the president didn't turn his back on Netanyahu. We're still giving him the money, and they keep still stealing Palestinian land. So that he's just ignoring the situation and not playing up to it. But Israel is doing what they want and continues to do so.
You recently said gold should be at $2,000 an ounce. So that was with Kitco. Why isn't it?
Well, you know, again, the whys. You could go back and you could go and do any search that you want, and you could come hear people like Ed Yardeni from Yardeni, forecasting in the financial end, saying that the markets are rigged. We saw that the LIBOR rate, it's rigged. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's rigged. It was rigged. All of the interest rates were rigged. We know that the Forex, the commodities, the currency trading of $5.3 trillion a day was rigged. And then all they do is get a fine. Nobody ever goes to jail because they're too big to jail. It's justice, just us. We're the little people. We have to live by the letter of the law, but they get a free ride. The same thing with going on with gold. You read Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, paulcraigroberts.org, former Assistant Treasury Secretary under Ronald Reagan, one after another. Pam Martins, one after another. You're looking at physical demand of gold hitting new time highs. You're looking at a new Goldman Sachs report that's saying that there's not going to be physical gold coming out of the ground in 20 years. And gold prices are still hovering around $1,200 at a time when the world debt is now over $200 trillion. And again, I mentioned earlier, why would I want to buy a German bond that I have to, in 5 years, cash in, guaranteed I'll get less money? So to me, do I think gold is going to be higher in 5 years than it is today? So why isn't it at 2,000? As I said, I believe, and I'm one of the people, by the way, when Gold Bull Run was happening, where I always put about a $2,000 limit on it. I didn't see it going much higher. But even accounting for inflation, gold, when it hit its high back in the 1980s, it should be around 2,700. So I believe gold is going to go over 2,000. And I'm in gold for my golden years. I'm not a speculator. My first buy, by the way, was in 1978 at $187.50 an ounce.
Do you still have that gold?
Yep.
A few years ago, I encouraged a friend of mine to invest in silver at $45 an ounce. We're no longer friends now. The silver market just bottomed out. How safe am I really in buying precious metals?
Again, I've always claimed very openly that silver, I don't have the knowledge of buying silver as I do of gold. And I was never a big, trend forecaster in the points of silver. And I would say less than 80% of my precious metals are in silver. And I bought high too, by the way. I bought like around the high 30s when I did buy it. So silver to me doesn't have it has the allure of gold to some extent, but it's used a lot in manufacturing. And when you have a slowdown in manufacturing, as we're seeing with the numbers coming out just today out of the United States, the manufacturing index is very, very discouraging. You're seeing that silver has a bigger downside than gold, and again, I believe so because of the industrial use of it.
China is currently accumulating huge quantities of gold, while the U.S., Canada, the U.K., they can't seem to get rid of their reserves fast enough. Why is the West set on getting rid of their gold while China does the opposite?
It's a different culture, and they've been around for quite a while, as I understand it, and they look at things very differently. And by the way, you're seeing even last year. Overall, according to the World Gold Council, central banks are buying, and I think they're going to continue to buy. And, as an American, I'm outraged that we the people are not allowed to see what gold is in Fort Knox. I mean, how come we can't see it? Why can't they show it to us? Who are they? What are they better than we? So I don't even know if they have that gold. And maybe that's why. And again, it's not in the interest of the United States or any major currency to see gold prices spike because it reflects the weakness of the currency. You look at China, for example, talking about China. Before China joined the World Trade Organization right after 9/11, about 2 weeks after, so it hardly made the news, their debt was about $2 trillion. Now it's like $20 trillion. And money's flooding out of that country, going to places like Vancouver and other Chinatowns around a country and a city near you. So gold, to me, is the safest of safe haven currencies. You're seeing it with the destabilization in Ukraine. You're going to see it. To me, the biggest story of 2015 has the potential to be the Saudis attacking Yemen, along with the other Arab League members, including Egypt. And there was a thing called the Egyptian Vietnam back in the 1960s. Egypt attacked Yemen, and they lost 26,000 men. They went in with 70,000. They retreated having gained nothing. These are tribal warfare has been going on for centuries. And if they attack the Saudi monarchy or the Saudi oil installations to a major effect, you're going to see a shake in the global economy that could destabilize it at a time when things are so unstable now. You look at the U.S. markets. One day they're up 250 points. The next day they're down 220. One day they're down 220. The next day they're down 150. You look at oil price swings. Down 4%, up 3%. I've never seen volatility as I've seen this year as 2015 has begun. I'm making that point because in these volatile markets, when there's a shock, a panic to the market, that's the time it could become unhinged. It's not a stable market. So if a heavy hit knocks it at some point, it comes down.
How do you see various parts of the world progressing, like Europe, North America, Latin America, Asia, Africa? Do you believe there's going to be a shift in the world superpowers? Or are the things the way they are now going to stay the same?
The United States is losing more and more on the financial side. You can see it with the population where we have the gap between the rich and the poor. That's the widest of any of the industrialized nations. Median household income is below 1999 levels. It's a decline. It's a global decline. The places that are going to grow the most, I believe, are going to be Asia in that area, just as the Chinese started the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. They already have 46 members. They're going to have probably within a year $100 billion in assets to put out there, compared to the World Bank at about $75 billion. And it's important as well because when you even think of the name, infrastructure investment, the Chinese invest about 8.5% of their GDP, annual GDP, in infrastructure investment. The United States, during the same period in 10 years, put in 0.065%. So when you fly into JFK, ride the rail, take the roads, you can see what's happening to America. The rail is third world. The roads are filled with potholes. The airports don't compare to anything overseas and in the newer emerging and advancing countries. So what you're seeing also is as the United States continues to expand and fight wars, China is building business. And I think you're going to start seeing Europe pulling more away from the United States and NATO, warming relationships more and more with Russia, and seeing the problems that they have coming from the destabilization that is caused by the United States, France, and England and their other coalition of the willing, and Canada, of course, what they've done with Libya, what they've done with Syria, what they've done with Iraq. Those are the Italians, by the way. That's their greatest fear. The waves of immigration coming out of these war-torn countries. So I think Europe is going to unite more and more with Russia. They're going to look for more peace. And South America is South America. It'll continue to grow as it does, and it will continue to have its ups and downs. So I don't see any really breakout spots. And again, China's overbuilt, and they're very deeply in debt. So I think you're going to see more of the same, but just keep getting a little bit worse.
Tell me about this June conference that's been announced, Find Your Future in Trends.
Yes, what we're going to do, we have conferences here in Colonial Kingston, and we teach trend forecasting. You know, the methodology that we've developed since 1980, the globalnomic methodology, to show people how to look ahead so they can stay ahead and avoid the dangers and seize the opportunities. And it's a one-day conference, so we're going to have some special guest speakers here as well. So people could find out more about it by going to trendsresearch.com, and click on the conferences. We have a great time here. Find food, entertainment, and a level of information that I could honestly say it's history before it happens, and you won't find it anywhere else.
Check out Gerald Celente's website at trendsresearch.com. Gerald, thank you so much for being a guest on the program today.
Thank you so much, Russell, for having me. All the best.